Okay, welcome back. First video was introduction and welcome to Fusion, and ended up with us being able to drag and drop with these swerve modules. And then this video, we're hopefully going to get all of the structure, this extruded aluminum structure, completed, and maybe even work on some of the bumpers. I'm gonna try and make this video a lot shorter than the 50 or some odd minutes of the first video. So what we got here now is we've got our four modules. And if you look, they came built in with some 1x2 extrusion in the CAD model. The problem is we can't do a whole lot with this 1x2 extrusion that they provided for us. So we got to go in and make our own. To do that, the first thing we got to do is, you see how these first two are linked? That means they are directly referenced back to the uploaded file. What we got to do is go into that uploaded file and delete those 1x2s because we can't do it in here. So we'll go ahead and do that. So we'll open up those files and we will go ahead and find this. Now, one thing that we can do that I haven't taught yet, so you see how I've selected the face of this part, or the 1x2 there? I've selected it and I'm going to right click on it, and that brings up a menu. Okay, the one thing that really helps out is, because look at this tree over here, it's 3 screens deep. I want to be able to find that part, so what I did is I clicked on it and I'm going to find it in the browser. And what it'll do, this thing will automatically find that part in the tree for us. So now I can select the whole part, not just the face. And then I am going to delete that, and hopefully this works. Yep. All right, so then we'll do the same thing for this one. Right click on it, find in browser, and we will delete that. Okay, now one thing I wanted to show you before I save this part, well, actually I can save it right now. Let's save this part. Okay, and if you watch, well, before I click on save, watch this area. You see how it says version 1 in there? When I click on OK, it'll automatically update. You can see the wheels turning, and this will change to a version 2. See, right there. Now watch what happens when I go into our main drawing. The first thing you notice here says this component is out of date. The update use the get latest in the design workspace. Basically, Fusion knows, hey, I made a change to this reference part. I'm working this screen right now, shows old data. To update it, I can go about one of two ways. One, I can just click this button up at the top there. It'll upload update everything. If I were to have made edits to 4 different parts, it will update all of those. Or I can directly click and get latest version. We'll do that. And there you can see our 1x2 extrusions are now gone. There's my kid. All right, so you'll see when we deleted that 1x2 structure from the CAD file, not only did it get deleted from these 2 parts, but also these 2. The reason being is these 2 were the output of a mirror operation from these 2. So essentially what happens is these 2 are linked back to our file in our project, but these 2 are subsequently linked to these. So if I made one edit in this file, all four swerve modules get those same edits. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is put together our structure of 1x2 aluminum. So unfortunately, the stuff we used, Vex VersaFrame, they don't have CAD models for it, but it's not a big deal. West Coast Products has CAD for just 1x2 1/8" wall. The only difference between, you can see there's no holes in this part. It's not a big deal. So I've already downloaded the file, so I am going to head and upload it. And there. And we're going to upload it. Now wait. All right, it's complete. Close out of that. So now, how long do we make it? Okay, so if you happen to notice, before I blew away those 1x2s, where the extrusion started and ended on these, it was basically right in the midpoint of this hole. So what we're going to do, I need to measure from this hole all the way over to the mating hole over there. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll zoom in on this. Now, one thing to remember with this measure function, is this show snap points. What that does is it adds a couple more pick points when you want to measure something. So I'm going to check that box. I also want to turn on my secondary units, inches. So here you can see now that there's like some plus signs in the center of those holes. Those are what we want to reference. Now to make them stick, sometimes what'll happen, you see how when I hovered over this bolt, it bombed onto the threads. But what I want to do is I'm going to press and hold Control, and that's going to keep those snap points active. So then I'm going to select that snap point, so it's picked the center of that hole. I'm going to zoom out, pan up, and then the same thing here. I'm going to hit Control, and then I'm going to click on that point right there, the center of that hole, and there's my dimension. So you can see here that's 16 inches. Okay. Now, to get that component right, I'm going to open up that step file. You can see here, long stick of it. I think it was 51 or 59 inches, but I need a 16-inch component. Okay, so I'm going to introduce what's called the press pull command. All right, what the press pull command is, it's an operation that lets you shrink or grow parts, mostly flat surfaces. So that's up here in the modify command. But the first thing is I need to know how long this is. So I'm going to hit inspect, measure, and then I'm going to select this edge. Now I got this menu to pop up by pressing and holding on that edge, by clicking and holding. So I'm going to select that edge. And it's telling me, yep, it's 59 inches. But I needed 16. I need to take away 59 minus 16 is 43 inches. So I need to make this 43 inches shorter. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to press pull. Okay. Then I'm going to pan down here. I'm going to zoom in on this surface here, right there. So I've selected that face. And if my memory is right, I said we needed it 43 inches shorter. I'm going to make it 43, negative 43. Zoom out before we accept the changes. Looks about right. I'll click on OK. Now, we've modified this part, but I don't want to lose. I want to create a new part out of this. So I'm going to do a file save as. Okay, so that way I can make a 16-inch part. So 16-inch 1x2 thick wall. Okay, so that way I know, and I can reuse this in the future. Okay, so what I'm going to do is save that, and you'll see here it popped up in this tree right there. So we're done with that part. We can close out of that. And we're done messing around with the swerve module. We'll close that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and drag in one of these rails. Okay, so we now have our 16-inch part in the model, but it's in the complete wrong orientation and position. So let's go ahead and start moving this around. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is rotate it so it's on the short edge. So let's do that by clicking and holding, dragging this around 90 degrees. Okay, so now we're gonna adjust this move command. This move command gives us a couple of options. Right now, it's set up in what's free move. I can rotate or translate in all three directions. This translate just cuts that in half. I can only translate. I can up, down, left, right, fore, aft. The rotate command is just the opposite. It limits me to a rotation only. The point to point here is what we're going to use. What this lets you do is pick a point anywhere on here, mostly on the edges or midpoints, and align that part, that first pick, to another very similar pick. And in this case, what we want to do is get this midpoint, and you can kind of see the triangle right there, right under my mouse. We want to get that lined up with the underside, the bottom side of this surface and that hole. Okay, so what I'm going to do, so you can see here it's defaulted to origin point. I'm going to zoom in, and you can kind of see it's got a blue triangle there. So that's where I want the midpoint of that edge to be my first point. I'm going to click on it. And then I think I got it. And then the target point, we want to be the bottom side of this bolt hole. So again, I'm going to press Control to keep those snap points locked. I'm going to click OK, or click there. And we'll pan out, zoom around. That looks to be right. Okay, so there's our first frame rail. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but 3 more times. So I'm going to drag it in again. And then I am going to rotate it. This time I have to rotate it twice to get the other rails in. So I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees. And then I'll rotate it that way 90 degrees. Now I'm going to switch to my point to point. I'm going to zoom in here. There's my blue triangle. And I'm going to zoom out. This time, I'm going to use this hole. Again, Control to lock the point. There. Go home. That looks right. We'll click OK. Once more. Ninety, point to point. There. To there. Looks right. And then finally the last one on the back side here. Add one more in there. 90. Point. Should zoom in, make sure I'm clicking that point there. More. Back home. Looks good to me. So now that our frames are all assembled, The only thing I didn't go into is the bolt holes. So we'll probably touch that on that in the next video. So I'm going to save this and click OK. Okay, so I know I said we were going to wait on the holes, but I decided let's go ahead and do that. The first thing we have to do in order to create the holes in the tubing is, if you look up here, these extrusions are linked back to the original part that we uploaded and modified and then saved. We have to break that link in order for us to be able to edit these parts. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select one, and then I'm going to click on break link. Okay, and what that does is it makes it so we can go ahead and make any sort of edits independent of this original file. So I need to do that with all 4. So I'm just clicking, selecting, and then breaking link. Okay. The next thing we have to do then is we need to transfer these holes, the location of these holes, onto the 1x2 tubing. To do that, we have to create a sketch. We're going to project this geometry onto our sketch. So what we're going to do is I'm going to type P as in project to bring up a sketch command. You can see here, once I did that, it gives me, where do you want to place your sketch plane? We don't want to place it anywhere down here. I want to project all that geometry onto this top surface. So we're going to use this top surface as our plane. So I'm going to click on that one. Okay, so you can see my view changed. The view automatically orients itself perpendicular or normal to the plane of the sketch. Now, what I need to do is I need to choose the geometry I want to project onto that sketch. So in our case, we want this outline of the perimeter of the swerve module, and the same thing up top. So I'm going to select this one. You can see it's outlined in red as to kind of show you what you're getting. And then I'm going to do this one as well. So once I get those 2 swerve modules selected, I'm going to click on OK. And then I'm going to go back home. And then I'm going to turn off all the swerve modules so you can see what I did. So you can see here now, I've got this sketch. This is only a 2D sketch. There's no depth to this at all. That has all of the pertinent geometry we need. What we do need is we need to push these holes through the tubing. So to do that, let me finish my sketch. So to do that, I'm going to use what's called the extrude command. And it's up here under create. Okay, so what the extrude does is it lets you pull stuff out of a drawing and create, or push stuff in and cut. So in our case, we want to push in to cut. I'll show you both. So I clicked on the extrude button, and for us, we only wanted, and I can turn the module back on to show you, we want this hole, which is really only a half hole. We want this one, and we want that one. So let's turn that module back off so we can see what we're doing. So I want to extrude this one, and the half hole. Okay, so I'm going to show you both cases. What we don't want in our case is to pull it out. So you can see here, I've made nubs or pegs that are coming out of this 1x2. We don't want that. What we do want, though, is we want to go in the opposite direction. Okay, you can see here, because it's turned red, I'm actually cutting, and you can also see it over here in the operation. There are a couple of different operations you can do. 99% of the time, it's going to be join, cut, or new body. we'll get there when we need to. But again, you're going to spend most of your time using join, cut, or new body. In our case, we want it cut. Looks right to me. And then we'll click OK. So there you can see our sketch disappeared because Autodesk or Fusion360 thinks we're done with the sketch. We're kind of not. But we've now created the holes in our part. Now we're going to turn that module back on, or that sketch back on, and come over here and do the same thing with the holes on the other tube. So again, 1, 2, and we'll do that. And we will bring it all the way down. Again, it doesn't really matter as long as I cut all the way through both walls. We'll click on OK. And we'll do the same thing for these two. Now we can do it all in one command too. So I'm going to do this. Oop, not that one. Now if you misclick and if you add something you don't want to extrude, you can click on it again. You can also come up here and clear the entire selection out. So if I click on this, it starts me over. So I want this one, and this one. And we will zoom up here, do this one, that one, and that one. We'll bring those down. Okay. So we're halfway done. We need to do another projection of the other two swerve modules. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this sketch off. I'm gonna turn my swerve modules back on. And then I'm gonna do the same thing starting with the projected sketch. So I'm gonna type P. And again, it's asking me what plane do you want to place the sketch? We're gonna go right here. And then it's asking us what geometry do we want to project. I want that one in red, and I want this in red. Click on OK. And now, again, see what we're doing. I'm going to turn the swerve modules off by clicking on those. Now I'm going to do all of these holes in one command. So again, create. Oh, I have to finish my sketch. I'm still in sketch mode. So I need to finish my sketch. Now I'm going to do all of these holes in one command. So I'm extrude. And then select that hole, that hole, that hole. Come down here. Do that hole, that hole, that hole. Zoom out. Pan, zoom in. That hole, that hole, that hole, that hole, that hole. And then to check my dimensions, I'm gonna come on down here where my last arrow is. Come all the way down. Click OK. And there we go. Turn my swerve modules back on so I can see what I did. And we're done. We're done with the holes at least. So I'm going to save my work. And then we're going to get into a little bit more part creation with the belly pan. And then we're going to get into more creation with some bumpers. Okay, so now that we got the aluminum structure in there, all the holes are in, we're going to start working on the belly pan. I don't know about you, whoever, but our team, we just use 1/4 inch Lexan on the bottom. So to do that, we need to make a sketch. We're going to make one of our first, create one of our first components. So to do that, I need to create and project a whole bunch of geometry onto this bottom plane of the 1x2 structure. So I've scrolled or panned down to the bottom of the robot, and I'm going to project by pressing P onto this plane. Okay, so now select that. Okay, now we need to select what geometry we want to project. So the first thing, we need the 1x2 because that is going to represent the perimeter of it, but we also need to make some cutouts for the modules themselves. So the first thing we want to grab is the 1x2 structure by selecting those 4 1x2s. And the other thing we want to grab is this bottom bracket for all of the swerve modules, because that's going to represent where we make our cutouts. So we're going to grab this, 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 and this. So once we've grabbed all that info, we're going to click on OK. And we can start finishing our sketch. But to do that, we're going to first turn off all the swerve modules. We're going to turn off all our geometry just to make things a little bit easier to see. So you can see this sketch here is really complex right now. Not to worry. When we go ahead and create, we can ignore a whole bunch of this stuff. Or when we go and extrude our belly pan, sorry. Okay, so now we've got all this info. The easiest thing to do would be to just make some kind of right angles or 45 degrees coming off of this belly pan. So what we're going to do is I'm going to create a line. So first thing we're going to do, so this is kind of the outside structure of the belly pan. I'm just going to kind of pick a point along this edge and come out maybe another inch or so. It doesn't have to be precise, doesn't have to be perfect. And then I am going to draw that line. So once I'm done, I'm going to hit enter. Okay. I need to delete that segment. So we've got that, but what we want to do to make things easier on ourselves is we want to create some construction lines about which to mirror a whole bunch of things. And to do that, to change into our construction line mode, we come over here and change the line type to construction. Basically what that does is says ignore it when you're actually going to create geometry or extrude. So then what we're going to do is we're going to draw an X pattern in construction lines so we can start mirroring stuff around those construction lines. So I'm going to select the center point of that down to here, and then I'm going to hit escape to cancel the line. I'm going to do another one from that center point there down. Okay, so I've got this construction line now, or these two construction lines. Now, what I'm going to do, like we did in the 3D or in the 3D part, I can mirror in 2 dimensions as well. So I'm going to mirror that line I created about this line. So you can see here, once I did that, basically takes this whole thing and flips it about that line. I'm going to click on OK. And we're done. Now I need to finish that cutout by connecting those 2 lines. Now I'm still in construction line, so I want to turn that off, toggle that off, and go back and create a line from there to there. Okay, I'm done with creating that line. I'm going to escape. So now you can kind of see where we're going. Now, here's another trick for you. Because I've got this center point and we've got a square frame, I can create what's called a circular array. And what that does is it will take these 3 lines we created and we'll clone them as many times as we want in a circular pattern around a defined point. In our case, this is going to be our center point. Again, we're square, and we want three more of those to cover these corners down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to the create, and I'm going to click on circular pattern. Okay, so now it says what objects do I want to copy. So I'm going to select the 3 lines we created, just like that. I've got those 3 lines, and then I got to pick a center point. That center point, not letting me pick that point. So then what we'll do, because there is no defined point right there, we're going to create a point right there. Okay, it defaulted to the midpoint there. So we now have a point there. Now we can go ahead and create our circular pattern. We'll come back up here. Circular pattern. Like that, that, and that. Now, if we're lucky, I can create that, select that point as my center line. It worked. So now it's set up to give me 3. I don't know why it does 3, it just does. But we want to create 4 of them around a full circle. We can do a partial one. If I wanted to do 4 and 90 degrees, you would see here that it's kind of all messed up, but we want to do a full one. You can see here, this is where one's going to be created, another one here, and another one here. That's set up the way we want it. We'll click on OK. Great. So now we basically have the entire structure of the belly pan, which is this area, this kind of octagonal area, plus these little sections right here. Okay, so this might not work. We'll try it. So we'll go ahead and finish the sketch. Now what we want to do is I want to create an extrusion now with some of this geometry. You can see here, this isn't going to exactly work. It wants to bring in this geometry over here as well. For some reason, I don't know. Everything else, oh, same thing down here. Okay, so we got to go and fix our sketch. So I'm going to cancel this extrusion, and then I'm going to come back. This is the sketch I've created, and I'm going to edit that sketch. Now, for some reason, it didn't like this geometry in this area here. It didn't see a closed line, and the same thing for this. So first thing first, a lot of this stuff we're going to blow away. I'm going to drag a window, and then I'm going to hit the delete key. Blew that away. Blow this stuff away. We'll blow this stuff away. Blow that away, whatever that junk is. All right, we'll blow this stuff away. Here. Here. Now, one thing I should mention, you can see here, when I click and drag this square, that means, and it's a solid outline, that means only things that fully reside inside of that square are going to get selected. Now, if I drag it the other way, you can see how it changes into a dashed perimeter. That means anything that crosses or is inside the box will get deleted. And I'll show you how that works. So now I'm going to come down here. I'm not going to hit the delete button because what's going to happen, because these 2 lines crossed that dashed line box, they will get deleted, and we don't want that. Okay, so to cancel out of that selection, I'm just going to click anywhere in the white space. What I do want is that stuff to get deleted. Okay, come down here, clean up some more of this junk. Now I'm going to select the crossing box just like that to delete that stuff. But then I'm going to use a normal box, select that stuff. Come down here, delete more junk. Delete. We'll do a crossing box for this, delete. And then the last is we'll do that. Okay. So now we've cleaned up this sketch a whole heck of a lot. We're still probably, you can see here now, I can select this region by clicking inside of it. I can select this region by control clicking. I still can't select this one, and I can select that one. So that tells me there's still something up with these two boxes. What we're going to try and do is fix that. So you can see how these lines cross over the blue line. So what we're going to do is we're going to first trim that. And you can see here, this isn't working. So let's just blow that line away. We don't even need that line. Same thing here. And actually, now that I'm walking through it, this should work. Just deleting these interior lines will work. Should work. Oh, there's our problem. We don't have a line. Got two problems there. All right, so let's close this region up by going from there to there, and there to there, there to there, there to there. Okay, you see how the shape changed color a little bit? It went light blue. That means we have a fully enclosed region now. Let me delete that line. Okay, we now have a fully enclosed region, which we can go ahead and extrude. I'm going to finish this sketch. Okay, I'm going to turn everything back on so I can see what I'm doing, see the results of my extrusion. And we haven't extruded it yet. All right, now we can go ahead and extrude our cleaned up sketch. Now what we can do, you can see this sketch in the dark black outline is what is going to get extruded. I click on that. It's in the right direction. We want to extrude it down from the 1x2 tubing. And we want to do it a 1/4 inch Lexan. So we do 0.25 in. Now, this is where this operation will come into effect. If I were to just click OK right now with it set at join, what it would do is it would physically weld this piece that we just made to that 1x2 tubing. We don't want that. We want it to be its standalone thing. So what I'm going to do to fix that is I'm going to drop down this operation box. I'm going to click on new body. I want it to be on its own as a separate entity. So you can see here the view changed, and now it looks like it's correct. So we'll click on OK. There we go. So now you can see here our sketch went away, but where's our part? Where's the part we just made? Anything you create with an extrusion as a new body shows up in here as body. So there it is. So we've now created our belly pan, but let's turn that into a component. Okay. So this is going to be something we'll use a little bit later on, where you can give items names and set components. So what we're going to do, we're going to come up here to this assemble new component. Okay, it significantly helps you arrange your product tree. We're going to create a new component. Now, what it's asking us now is, what is my parent component? So if I wanted to nest something inside of one of these components here, I could do that with this. In this case, though, the parent is everything. So if I were to click clear that checkbox out, I can select 1x2, put it under the 1x2, or clear it out. I can put it under this, under the Neo. I can't do it because those are linked. But what I want is, I want it just in the chassis. So it will show up right underneath at the bottom of this tree. So we'll just click on OK after. Just remembered, you uncheck this activate box. I don't understand the value of this activate box. It stumped me for probably a week. What happened? Just deactivate the checkbox. And we're going to click OK. So there, now you can see it's generated as its own component. Let's rename it by right-clicking on it and coming down here to rename. We'll just call it belly pan. And we're done with the belly pan. So you can see here we got pretty good cutouts for everything. Our swerve wheels aren't going to hit anything, so we're pretty good there. So we're save it. Next, we'll get into bumper creation. Okay, the last thing we're going to do with the chassis, before we can call the rolling chassis officially done, is create some bumpers for it. I had to go back and see what the dimensions were for the bumpers we made for our season robot. So I pulled that old version up. So I'm just going to use that as a reference. I'm going to be bouncing back and forth just to make sure the sizes are right. So I'm going to go back to our main drawing, and you kind of want to align the bumpers with the bottom of the belly pan. And so the first thing we're going to do is create a sketch on the plane of that bottom surface, that bottom 1/4 inch Lexan. So I've clicked on create a sketch, and I'm going to zoom or pan underneath, and I'm just going to select the bottom surface of this belly pan. Select the face, and this menu typically doesn't pop up all the time. It's just I'm clicking and holding for some reason. So there. Okay, so the zoom, or it created or it adjusted my viewpoint. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna create a 2-point rectangle. From one corner of the belly pan to the next, and then we'll fix it later. We'll fix and add the 45s later. So actually first, I'm gonna come into the old drawing and measure how big these are. So we're gonna go inspect. I'm gonna measure from that point back here to this point. But here's another thing. When you inspect and do measure, it only gives you, initially only gives you the straight measurement. If you come over here and change the XYZ delta, this was a new add, these two, but you always pick the third one. And what that'll give you is the XYZ delta. And these colors are referenced back to your view cube up here. So right now, all I really care about is how thick these are. And they are 76.2 mils, which is, I believe, 3 inches. Yeah, doing the math in my head. So 76.2. All right, so first thing, let's come over here. Now we can use, because where everything is located, the robot, we can use this origin, the 0, 0, 0, as our first point. And then we'll pan all the way up. So like that. And then I'm just going to click on somewhere out, some point in space out here. Okay. So we've got roughly the dimension we want. But in order to get precise, what we can do is this sketch dimension here. What that does is it allows you to put constraints on it. So I want to come out there. So my rough view of it was actually 105 millimeters, but we wanted it 76.2. So I'm going to type in 76.2 in there, and you'll see what happens is our rectangle is going to shrink. See? So now this dimension, if I somehow wanted to make it 150, I could double click on that dimension and type it 150 and it'll grow. So anything like that, you can go in, and once you add a dimension to it, just changing it, double clicking on the measurement and changing the value will change the size of it. So this is well and good, but we need them triangular, right? Or we need to add some 45 degrees here. So what I'm going to do is come back up here to this line, and from that point, I'm going to come over here. Now, when I drag this line out, you can see there's two boxes. One shows distance, how long I want to make it. So if I punch a number in here, 75, that line will always be 75 millimeters. I can wrap it around whatever degree I want. Or I can cancel. I'm going to cancel that command. Or the other thing I can do is I'm going to hit the tab button to change over to degrees. In our case, we want 45 degrees. You can see the angle there is referenced from the line there. So I'm going to come out 45 degrees. So this line is now constrained to being 45 degrees. So what I'm going to do then is I am going to drag it up and right there. See how I've got my projected dashed line there? I'm going to click on that, come down to here, and then I'm done. So there's one of our corners that we need. I'm going to come down here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come over here, drag this out roughly. I need to tab over to the angle, make sure it says 45 degrees, and then start slowly creeping it out until I hit that extension, and then I'm going to drag it up and close it out. Okay, so we're done with one bumper. Let's finish that, well, at least the sketch of one bumper. So let's go back home. Okay, we ended up on the left side. All right, the other thing I need to measure now, I'm going to reference from the other bumper, is how tall these are. So again, I'm going to inspect. I'm going to go from here, get a little bit better view to there, and those are 146 millimeters. Okay, this time I didn't need to change the XYZ deltas because I got a perfectly straight line vertically. All right, so 146 millimeters is how big we want that. I'm gonna extrude. Now, what's gonna happen is because I drew the rectangle and then I drew these triangles on the side, you see how it's allowing me to pick individual shapes to extrude. I'm gonna need all three of them. 1, 2, 3. Check the direction of this. If I were to just type in 146, it'd push them down. We don't want that, right? So I need a negative 146. Again, because we made a sketch on that bottom, the belly pan, it wants to join them together. We don't want that. So what I'm going to do is create a new body. Now everything, the drawing looks normal. Everything looks great. We'll click OK. All right, so now we've got one bumper. All right, let's clean it up a little bit. If you look at this other one, we softened some of the corners up. So let's do some of that. We're going to use the fillet command to do that. Again, we've got a solid body now. So I'm going to use this fillet command. And with the fillet command, you can either select individual edges. So I can just do this one edge only that I've got my mouse on. Or if I select a face, what it'll do is it'll find all four edges, or as many edges as your face has, and it will do all those edges the same, fillet them the same dimension. So I'm going to click the face because I want the face of this to be all the same, and we're going to play around with it. We'll call it 5 millimeters to begin with. That doesn't look soft enough, so let's call it 10. That looks pretty good. Okay, so we've got our more realistic bumpers. I'm going to show you a little trick now on how to do the numbering in them. Okay, the way you do that is you do what's called an emboss in the component. So I'm going to put a sketch on this, the face of this bumper, and what I'm going to do is Fusion360 has a text command in the sketch option. So I can create text here. So I'm going to drag a box from here. If it'll let me, once my computer catches up. We're going to go down to here, and hopefully my computer doesn't crash. There we go. All right, so I got it roughly the size of the surface of the bumper, and you can see just barely make out sample text. All right, so I'm going to add our team number in there, 5090. And then we have a branding standard, which is copper plate. If I can find it. Scroll it down. And it uses any true type font you want that you have installed. We got to change the height, so let's try 50 millimeters. Not big enough. 90 millimeters. Let's go 110. That looks about right. And then you can change the alignment. So I'm going to do the left-right alignment in the center and the up-down, because I basically made it the whole surface. I want the up-down alignment in there centered. So you can see I got the numbers for our team on the bumper, and we'll click OK. So we're done with the sketch. We'll finish it up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude. Let me fill that profile. I'm going to extrude that text into the bumper. So I'm going to cut out just a little bit of that bumper and give a depth. So I've selected my text. I'm just going to do -2 millimeters. You can see it just kind of barely cuts in there. Don't need a lot in that. And we'll click OK. So now we've got our bumpers. Before we do go into copying all three, I'm going to save my work. And then what we will do, first thing is we're working with this as a body. We want to turn it into a component. So I'm going to click on that body, and then there's an option here, create components from body. We'll do that. It comes down here as a boring name, component 62. So let's fix that. Let's just call it bumper. And to rename it, all I did was click on it. I selected it once and click on it again. That's all you got to do. So now we can copy this all the way around. Copy that bumper. So I'm gonna right click and then I'm gonna move/copy it. So over here, I want to create a copy. Okay, so I'm gonna click that checkbox. And then what we'll do is we'll make what we'll call the front bumper. I'm calling bottom left to be the front. So the first thing I need to do is get it into the orientation I want, facing bottom left. So I rotate it to 90 degrees, and then I use a point-to-point move. So I'm gonna select this corner right down here, and then as my origin point. And then I'm going to select this corner right here. Okay, here's one thing. Sometimes when you switch back and forth, your origin point and target point get mixed up. So if it doesn't move, you've messed this up. So we're gonna reselect our origin point being back here. There we go. Now we're on our target point right there. That's in the right spot. We'll click OK. Then we're going to do the same thing. Move or copy. We're going to, I need to do a free move first to get it in the orientation. I need to do a free move, and I also need to do the create a copy. So we'll do this, rotate that 90 degrees, and then we'll do our point to point. Make sure I got origin selected. Nope. Target point there. Looks good. Last one is the back. So we'll select one of them. Doesn't matter which one. We'll move or copy. Change it to a free move. Make sure we're creating our copy. We'll rotate it into the correct orientation, 90 degrees. And then we'll do our point to point. There. And so you can see what I'm clicking a little bit better. To there. That looks good to me. So we'll go home. So that's our robot, our rolling chassis as it is right now. That'll be it for this video. I'm not going to go into the appearance stuff yet. We'll save that till the end when we get a cool looking robot. We'll try and make it even look cooler. The next video, we're going to go a little bit more into the philosophy that is rattling around my head as far as the design of this robot. And we might even, we'll see if we can get a guest in to help us do the design of everything, what this robot is designed about or designed towards, and that's the intake. So thanks for watching. If you like it, subscribe. I'm not farming for subs. I just want the subscription so you guys know when I post a new video. Thanks.